Back in 2016, I achieved my lifelong dream of becoming a published author, and soon after, I realized the true struggle all authors have in finding book reviews. While I'm incredibly proud of what I've achieved as an indie author over the years, I'm just as proud of the indie books I've discovered and reviewed in that time also, because reading to me is everything. The escapism, the stories, the immersion, and even the magic that reading can be has brought me so much over the years. Supporting fellow indie authors has become a duty, just like my dedication to the written word. Welcome to Talking Indie Books with Lee Hall, an opportunity for me to showcase some wonderful indie books I've been reading. For this episode, I shall be reviewing one of my most recent reads, which is in the genre of narrative poetry. Now, first of all, before we do dive in, my quest to review indie books extends to all corners of genre, and perhaps even genres that I may not have heard a lot about in the past. And to me, narrative poetry is something I haven't read a lot of over the years. While I have taken in some wonderful indie poetry, narrative poetry has seemingly passed me by. Has my taste in reading left me sheltered from this genre? Have I been perhaps ignorant to not realize that good indie narrative poetry does exist? The reason I'm asking these perhaps existential, self-reflecting questions is because, well, I've only really recently discovered narrative poetry, and my experience was awesome. For those wanting to know, narrative poetry can be defined as a form of poetry that tells a story. And you'll recognize famous names like Edgar Allan Poe and William Wordsworth as they come to mind here. And with history lessons to one side, and having just finished a few longer reads on my TBR, I was looking to take on something lighter, but still very entertaining. And so I discovered Suffer for Art by Sophie Bounds, a fellow indie author I know on Twitter, and from the cover, I was immediately drawn to it. The simplistic contrast of bright and dark colours, the image of a guitar just giving enough of a visual clue to suggest what the story is about, and all told through rhyme and verse. Now, I'll happily admit, I read Suffer for Art in just one sitting. The pages turned quickly for me, and I wanted to know what would happen next in this unique story that sees Nathan, the main character, and a musician, who we first meet, busking on the streets, and struggling to find an audience. What follows is a viral moment he experiences on social media that propels him to stardom, then inspiration, and then to wider success. But with it comes the drawbacks and even distractions of fame. There is even someone claiming to be behind this sudden rise in popularity, and what follows is a kind of a feud between Nathan and this influencer type person. And this highlights what social media can do for creatives, and even to friendships. It also highlights how popularity on social media might not always last, but the art and creativity does. As from my written review, the message within highlights how creatives can sometimes get caught up or even distracted by social media when the actual art we produce is what really matters. Suffer for Art is a modern, thoughtful exploration of creativity and how we sometimes suffer for it. All of it is told through verse. The pacing and rhyming aspect of the story never really dulled, and there are even songs by Nathan included into the narrative. Now, you would never catch me singing the lyrics out loud on here, but my favourite quote from this book is from one of Nathan's songs, and it is this: "Though critics love to rip us apart, here we strive to thrive in our art." My rating for this book was 5 stars, and you can find my written review linked below. So, that wraps up this episode of Talking Indie Books with Lee Hall. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and of course, if you're reading something right now, remember to leave a review. Peace out, rock and roll, and reading indie books.